you for participating in today's meeting. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room, and please silence all devices. If translation is provided, click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you're in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby or complete a blue speaker card as available. If you need assistance, please find a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items. Times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. More time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on making a public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-3247. That's 909-396-3247. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
Good morning, everyone. I guess I've been voluntold that I'm chairing today. And we'll start off with roll call, please.
Okay, Chair Padilla Campos, not present. Senator Delgado, not present. We have Supervisor Hagman is here. Elizabeth Alcantar, not present. Well, Manuel Arredondo, present.
Present.
Pamela Adsity. Angelica Balderas. Present. Ada Briseño. Not present. Dr. Lawrence Beeson, present. Suzanne Bilodeau, present. Paul Cho, absent. Carrie Doi, absent. Dr. Afif El Hassan, absent. Lisa Hart, absent. Mary Figueroa, present. Angela Garcia, absent. Kareem Gongora, present. Anna Gonzalez, absent. Dr. Jill Johnston, absent. Eddie Marquez, absent. Donald Smith, absent. And Rafael Yanez,
Present. And the chair made it.
Sorry, I was late. I was expecting a member to come here, but they have not yet arrived.
I'm here. I'm actually at the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I was gonna come, but then the time it took me to get to your office versus here was like 5 minutes. Same difference.
Okay, sounds
All right.
good.
So Padilla Campos is the chair of this committee.
Oh,
so-
okay. Hi, Vanessa. I thought you were chairing, but I guess I am. So
Okay.
unfortunately, we do not have a quorum again. So one of these days we'll get a quorum and pass a year and a half's worth of minutes. But so we'll skip item 1 and we'll go to item 2, review follow-up action items. Turn to Lisa.
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. So our one action item was to share the link regarding the commercial electric lawn and garden equipment program with our EJEG member, Rafael Yanez, and staff provided this information via email on September 18th. And that was all of the action items.
Okay, so move on to discussion items. We have item number 3 is the summary report of state legislation. And Who's giving that report?
Did we need to take public comment?
Oh. It wasn't an action item. Was it? It's not an action item.
No, okay, sorry.
So we're doing legislation or?
Great, thank you very much. If we could have the slides. Great, thank you. So I'm Philip Crabb, Senior Public Affairs Manager in Legislative Public Affairs and Media. Happy to be here to report kind of a summary of state legislative activities that happened in 2025. It was definitely an eventful year. Let's go to the next slide, please. We'll kind of give you an overview of kind of starting from the beginning of the year all the way to the end. And next slide, please. Just for some initial context, the background there was a lot of new legislators and staff. We had 39 eventually new legislators with over 30% turnover and a high staff turnover. So educating and introducing ourselves was another big task that we had to do this year, just to kind of make sure that we are getting our messages out there. Although they kind of focused on having a bill limit this year, there still was over 2,300 bills introduced. So we'll see how that goes for the second year of this 2-year term. But there was a lot of legislation to consider. And of course, as you all remember, in January with the wildfires, the uncertain economy, we had a lot of external pressures, the federal government, obviously with executive orders, repealing of the California waivers. There was a lot of context and challenges to start off the year. Next slide, please. Next slide again. Thank you. So there was ultimately an initial deal cut for the state budget. Now this has kind of become an ongoing process throughout the year. So June, there's a deadline to actually pass the initial state budget. That's what it has become. Usually they'll do an initial deal and then do additional changes as we go through the end of the session. So at the time they cut the deal, there was a projected nearly $12 billion shortfall with projections for additional billions of dollars of shortfalls going forward. There was some creative strategies used to try to solve these issues, reducing programs, borrowing from certain funds, shifting money around, those kinds of things. So let's go to the next slide, please. So here are some of the details of what they did initially in June. Also, you'll note there was a shift of $35 million to the lead acid cleanup fund for the Exide residential cleanup. Also, they were doing some cost savings for the general fund and were borrowing from a fund that we often get key funding from, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. That's discretionary funding, and they used over $1 billion of that to go to CAL FIRE in the current budget year. And then projecting forward for the next 3 years, there are sizable amounts. The next year over $1 billion, and then 500 million in the following years after that. So there's lots of money being actually sucked out of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and making it tougher for our priorities to get funded. Next slide, please. So another big item this year was the cap and trade program and the possibility of it getting reauthorized. It ended currently in 2030. And indeed, we'll get into some of the details a little bit later, but they did extend the program from 2030 to 2045 and very last minute deals at the end of the year in September, and also rebranded it as, instead of cap and trade, they call it cap and invest. So let's move on to the next slide, please. So just again, focusing on the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, or the GGRF, that is also going to be funded a lot by the cap and trade program. That's where, when they do the auctions of all the cap and trade, all the credits, those will go into that fund. And currently there is basically a number of initial off the top money that's continuously appropriated. And you can see the categories down below, things like high-speed rail, affordable housing, transit, forest, water, backfill for CAL FIRE. They already had lots of things they started randomly putting in there. And that would basically take about 65 to 70% of the funding off the top. And then we would end up kind of fighting over the 30 or so percent of discretionary funding left over. And that's what you see on the right there. Under discretionary, we're looking at things like climate, transportation. That includes the AB 617 program, zero emission vehicles, things like that. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so here is a pretty busy slide, but we will spend some time on kind of going through the priorities. I'm actually going to start at the bottom, where I was talking about the budget and cap and trade reauthorizations. So kind of with that initial budget deal in June, at the start, it was a difficult budget year and AB 617 funding was zeroed out. There was nothing allocated in June for the program. But fortunately, through advocacy with our legislative partners, we were able to turn that around. There was a secondary, they call it a junior budget bill, SB 105, that was signed into law by the governor and later in the year, and that provided $100 million statewide for the AB 617 program for this fiscal year 25-26. And that included $45 million, and that's not on the slide, but we were advocating for more, but we got just about what we were looking for. We were looking for 100 million, and there was 100 million overall, but the breakdown was 45 million for the Air District implementation of the program, $50 million for community incentives to reduce mobile and stationary source emissions of criteria pollutants and toxic air contaminants, and then $5 million going for community grants. And that's for technical assistance for community-based organizations. And this funding restores vital resources for our districts and communities. Additionally, as part of the package, a bill package, there was the cap and trade program, as I mentioned earlier, was reauthorized this year, named Cap and Invest, extending to 2045. We had AB 1207 by Assemblymember Irwin, and these were all bills that kind of evolved later in the year. And that reauthorized the program directly. And basically, the key there is ensuring that there are strong streams of revenue. When you reauthorize the program, it creates more confidence. So when they do the auctions, we're hoping that more money will be generated, and we're talking about, billions of dollars basically, and that can help fund some of our clean air priorities. Another key bill was SB 840 by Senator Limon and McGuire. That was the GGRF budget bill. And the key thing for that bill was that we were able to successfully secure an ongoing $250 million statewide annual allocation of funding for the AB 617 program. And that'll be starting next budget year in fiscal year 26-27. This is now locked in to the continuous appropriations formula. If you remember, we looked at that previous formula that was talking about high-speed rail and transit. That is being wiped away and being replaced with a new formula. And the AB 617 program is being included in that program, in that formula. So that's great news. It's a great victory, and that's going to provide stable long-term funding for our program needs. Together, these two bills guarantee that AB 617 and other clean air initiatives will not only survive, but thrive with dedicated funding through 2045. So looking 20 years in the future. There was also some changes made to the AB 617 program through a bill SB 352 Reyes, which was signed into law by the governor. And this bill, if funding is available, requires AB 617 monitoring locations to remain active for at least 5 years with possible extensions in 5-year increments. It also requires CARB to update monitoring plans by July 1st, 2026, and every 5 years thereafter. Starting March 1st, 2027, it also requires CARB in consultation with air districts to report annually to the legislature, basically on how AB 617 program is progressing. And finally, it requires the CARB chair and local air district air pollution control officers, so basically that would be Wayne Nastry for the South Coast, to appear before the legislature upon request for updates regarding the AB 617 program. Okay, so I will now go to the top of the sponsored bills. Just a little update on, there was 3 sponsored bills we had in 2025. One of them was AB 1338 by Assemblymember Salache. And that was a cleanup bill for a prior bill, AB 2851 by Bonta in 2024, and that was regarding fence line monitoring at metal shredders. 2851, the original bill was passed in 2024 and required air districts to adopt and enforce fence line monitoring requirements at metal shredding facilities. The AB 1338 was cleanup legislation for that bill, and it would allow air districts to recover costs for metal shredders associated with that fence line monitoring. We're also seeking amendments to allow air districts like South Coast to continue to utilize local rules that exist now to monitor and minimize emissions from metal shredders. There was a lot of process put in. It was done through the AB 617 program, so we're trying to preserve that. So negotiations on that bill are pending, and it's now what we call a 2-year bill. And this was a first year of a 2-year session, so that means we get to put it on pause and pursue it again in 2026. So we'll get a second bite at the apple next year. Next, we have AB 907 by Assemblymember Chen, and that was regarding CARB board. We have air district representatives that serve on the CARB board, and currently they receive little to no compensation. So this was a bill just to bring parity and to allow air district representatives to get the same compensation as the existing voting CARB board members. That bill also, kind of due to a tough budget year, is now what we call the 2-year bill. So we put that on pause, and we're going to be taking it up again in 2026 to continue to try to pursue that. Then we have AB 1106 by Assemblymember Rodriguez. Obviously, with all the wildfires, there was a lot of emissions and kind of confusion as to, is the air safe, to go out and, kind of needing that kind of information on an emergency basis. So this bill was proposed, would have expanded the existing CARB statewide air quality incident response program and create regional air quality incident response centers located in and operated by the air district. So we would have had one here at South Coast to enhance local emergency air monitoring responsibilities. Now, unfortunately, again, due to budget constraints, AB 1106 died in the Assembly Appropriations Committee, so that bill is now dead. I also wanted to highlight kind of for the final, some of the bills that are in the second high priority position bills. There's additional bills that we took positions on as an agency. So one key bill was SB 34 Richardson, and that was impacting South Coast AQMD's indirect source rulemaking regarding port emissions. That bill would have for the next 5 years, would have limited South Coast AQMD's ability to use its ISR authority to adopt or amend rules that would have imposed emission reduction requirements on the ports. This was opposed by South Coast AQMD, and staff engaged in aggressive advocacy along with legislative partners against the bill. I'm happy to report that although the bill did pass the legislature, it was vetoed by Governor Newsom and is now dead. I'll run through a few more. There was AB 471 by Assemblymember Hart that would have established some compensation for board members and other single county air districts that don't currently get compensation. We supported that bill, and it was signed into law by the governor. We also have AB 1266 by Sulace it was a bill that would have required large air districts like South Coast to comply when we do a local rule, to comply with a state process called the Administrative Procedures Act. Would have really slowed down rulemaking. So we were able to work with the author to achieve a non-legislative solution and make some adjustments locally, but not have that bill move forward. Also, there was SB 712 Grove, and that would have exempted classic or collector vehicles that met certain criteria for smog check requirements. And if we can go to the second slide, there's some additional bills, and we'll kind of jump back and forth. But so that would have exempted classic and collector vehicles from certain criteria from smog check requirements. Now, that unfortunately would have raised pollution levels. So we did have an oppose unless amended position on the bill, and that bill did die in committee. Another cleanup bill was SB 415 Reyes, and that was a cleanup for a bill that imposed AB 98 in 2024 that imposed unfunded monitoring requirements on South Coast AQMD. That was something we just wanted to get clarity on, narrowing some of the requirements and getting needed funding. Sometimes the state will do unfunded mandates. So we were able to have that bill signed into law by the governor. And the last bill is SB 526 by Senator Menjivar. That would have required South Coast AQMD to amend our Rule 1157 regarding aggregate recyclers. Now, we were able to work extensively with the senator to go to her community, do outreach, assess kind of all the issues going on in that community. And we were working with the senator to reduce air pollution, not just from aggregate recyclers, but other facilities in Sun Valley. And that bill is now a 2-year bill, and we're working actively with the senator. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Any questions for our members? It's a busy legislative year as usual. Raphael.
Good morning or good afternoon. So there were a number of, I believe, Assembly bills and Senate bills that you had named, which impacted the AB 617 program, but weren't included in this particular slide presentation. So I don't know if you can provide an addendum to the presentation. Because you named a whole bunch of like SB 8 something, and that again wasn't on this list. And then you went on while I was trying to follow, there was just a lot of things you were listing that weren't on this slide presentation. So if you could provide those and the recap of those, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think there's two primary ones. The SB 840 provides the funding, and SB 352 that makes some changes to the program. So like we can provide some information on those two bills.
There were others, like I said, Senate Bill SB 8 something.
840,
840, yeah.
Yeah.
That you named, and then
352.
Yeah, I was hearing other bills that impacted other programs, and that I'm looking for all those.
Yeah, we can provide more
recaps,
information on the
please.
bills not included on the presentation.
And then I think there was you went over so fast I believe the cap and fund and what was going on with the cap and fund, the upping of the cap and fund program. And then there was a lot of last minute deals that were being cut in order to pass that. So do you have information on what those ultimate deals were in order to get those passed?
Yeah, the SB 840 does lay out the entire formula for basically the new funding formula for that cap and invest program. So that'll be very helpful to kind of lay out how that money will be spent going forward. And AB 1207 was just kind of the overall bill that reauthorized the program. So we can include information on that as well.
You good, Raphael? Any other member have any more comments on this? Any public comments on legislative update? Go ahead.
Apologies. So looking at the GGRF, which is I guess the greenhouse gas funds and whatnot, it looks like high-speed rail and affordable housing, I guess, is grabbing a piece of that pie and further reducing those that ultimately would normally go to air quality measures. Now we're down to 34%, 37%, which is available for reappropriation. With regards to the high-speed rail and then affordable housing, how are those being categorized in terms of the greenhouse gas funds and taking from that? So I take it the high-speed rail program, I think that's an all-electric train. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, of
works.
course, again, it's starting from the middle and radiating out, and we're just starting to see plans on that now coming through.
I'll put a side bet that my rail goes from Rancho to Vegas quicker than that goes anywhere, but.
Right, exactly. But in any case, yeah, so if you can just provide comments on how those tie into greenhouse gas funds.
Yeah, again, SB 840 will be very telling. The formula that was put up initially was kind of the existing one that we showed in one of the slides earlier. I believe is on slide number slide number 7 was kind of like the existing formula that includes high-speed rail, affordable housing, and SB 840 that we'll provide information on replaces that formula with a new formula, and we'll get information to you on that. To you all.
Can you email that out? That way we don't have to wait till the next meeting for that, because it's kind of important. Yes,
It sure does.
yes. As a recovering legislator, I can tell you, we stole money from other buckets all the time. But I also will say that when I passed my budget 12 years ago, it was under 100 billion, and we're 350 plus now, and we're still broke for 10 years. I wish I tripled my income in 10 years. Kareem.
Thank you, Chair and Supervisor. So I had a very fun meeting yesterday at the Planning Commission on AB 98. A lot of the jurisdictions are going through implementation. And so I had a question on kind of some of the monitoring requirements and the security-related funding. A lot of the conversation for the community and obviously from the staff was about what funding is going to come for enforcement. Because a lot of the goal with the establishing truck routes through AB 98 means that we're going to need to have an enforcement arm. So what does that look like? And I guess it says work with author. So I'm trying to get a better understanding of what that means. And kind of what happened in the process in the county. The legislation was passed, I believe, in 2024, required to take place either in 2025 or the beginning of 26. And so there was kind of this hyperactive campaign to find those routes, but now we're in this like gridlock of implementation and obviously engaging the community. So just wanted to see what enforcement's happening and what level of monitoring.
Yeah, so if you look at our monthly, Nicholas Sanchez, Assistant Chief Deputy Counsel. So if you look at our monthly penalty report, NOVs associated, starting with the letter O, those ones have been designated, issued for 2305 violations. And so as you've pointed out, the governing board created a special fund towards the end of last calendar year. And so that fund accounts for the designation under AB 98 for, redistribution or selection of settlement funds for use in the community. There is a little bit of a confusion because there are fees associated with the submittal of the 2305, the site reports, as well as the annual reports for the warehouse data. And so there are fees submitted for those that go directly into the district's general fund. But for the settlement money beginning in calendar year 2025, that money has been put into a special fund. And so I'm going to say at least 700,000 has been deposited in that fund so far. And so we will work through either one of the committees or directly with the governing board to determine how we're going to do the receiving solicitation for the communities impacted by the warehouses. So that's on the settlement portion and use of funds under AB 98. I'll let staff respond to the other.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I did not know about that. So that's great news.
Yeah, and Lisa Tanaka, Deputy for Legislative Public Affairs. On the AB 98 side, we work with Senator Reyes. It was fantastic, and her team to work out the required study they were helping us so that we can actually get funding. So Senator Reyes secured $1 million. And with that $1 million, we'll be working with them to conduct a study and provide data so that there can be an analysis of distance and warehouses. So we were really happy to work with her office. She was a fantastic leader on that.
Awesome. She's my senator, so that's great news. Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor.
No problem. Any other questions on this? Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, well, Lisa brought it up. It was part of my question if you guys were able to get those funds for the reporting. And what was the timeline that was, I guess, finalized or set in stone to complete that study?
So the senator secured $1 million, and I apologize, I don't have the timing right in front of me, but we
Okay.
can send that
Okay.
afterwards. It
Yeah.
was in the amendments that were offered, so I think
Okay.
that was
Yeah, SB 415 and then.
415, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, we worked out a timeline and we tried to do it as expeditious as possible, but within the science and practice, because we wanted to make sure it was useful data that we were providing.
Yeah, and then to piggyback on that really quick, I know while we were working on the legislation, we mentioned that there's already a lot of CARB monitoring that's been taking place since 2019. And so will you guys be using that data from the local groups that have been obtaining that
That's
data?
perfect. Yes, Anna. So in the amendment, we added language to ensure that we're able to use existing data as well as any data that we might need to supplement to provide, for a good analysis. We also are committed to developing a software tool that will be posted online for anybody to use to put in different parameters to get information. So that's also in the works.
Thank you.
The last one, because I'm excited that we have a quorum, and for the first time in a year and a half, we could pass the minutes. I want to get back to that, but go ahead, Raphael.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just real quick, just a follow-up to Kareem's question in regards to, funding and all that other stuff. Given all of the additional funds that are whatnot coming in, I know there's been, or at least, overall in number of cities and whatnot, a shortage of inspectors. And so the compliance inspectors is like, we're hearing a lot of these, passages of enforcement actions and bills and things and money coming into for enforcement. Are you guys fully staffed right now in terms of enforcement? And like, with all these rules that are being, it looks great from a community standpoint, but if there's no enforcement, it's all for naught. So what is enforcement currently looking like? And I know there's been designations of the O and all the NOV violations in order to get reimbursement and all that stuff.
Rafael, that's a great question, but I don't want to answer for Terrence Mann, our deputy for enforcement. So I don't have the stats on, our staffing levels, but I can say that, Terrence and Victor lead a very tight ship and they're out and, working hard, but we can look into that for you.
Anybody else? Any public comments? If not, can we go back to action item number 1, confirm that we do have a quorum? And we'll take a motion. We have minutes from November 14th, 2024, February 28th, 2025, May 23rd, and August 22nd.
You want to do them collectively?
Yes, please, unless you.
Well, I think we need a roll call again.
Yeah, you want to confirm we have quorum?
Roll call first and then we could adopt.
Okay, Chair Padilla Campos, absent. Senator Vanessa Delgado,
Here.
Supervisor Hagman.
Here.
Elizabeth Alcantar, absent. Manuel Arredondo, present. Pamela Atcity, present. Angelica Balderas, present. Ada Briseño, absent. Dr. Larry Beeson, present. Suzanne Bilodeau, present. Paul Cho,
Here.
present. Carrie Doy, absent. Dr. Afif El Hassan, present. Lisa Hart, absent. Mary Figueroa, present. Angela Garcia, absent. Kareem Gongora, present. Anna Gonzalez,
Present.
present. Dr. Jill Johnston, absent. Eddie Marquez, absent. Donald Smith, absent. And Rafael Yanez.
Present.
That's 13. We have met quorum.
Exciting. I will entertain a motion for item number 1 on the minutes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that. Are we doing these all in one
Yeah,
shot?
one
Yeah, I'll
shot.
second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please. We had a motion second.
Okay, for a roll call again, Chair Padilla Campos, absent. Senator Delgado,
Yes.
present. Supervisor Hagman,
Hagman, aye.
Elizabeth Alcantar, absent. Manuel Arredondo, present. Pamela City, present. Angelica Balderas, present. Ada Briseño, absent. Dr. Larry Beeson, present. Suzanne Bilodeau, present. Paul Cho, is present. Carrie Doy. Carrie Doy is absent. Dr. Afif El Hassan, present. Lisa Hart, absent. Mary Figueroa, present. Angela Garcia, absent. Kareem Gongora, present. Anna Gonzalez,
Aye.
present. Dr. Jill Johnston is absent. Eddie Marquez, absent. Donald Smith, absent. Rafael Yanez,
Yes.
present. That's 13 again.
Okay, thank you. We passed. We'll move on. That's an accomplishment. We'll jump on to item number 4, Joint Electric Truck Scaling Initiative. And Kareem, our own member, is going to present on this. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Supervisor. Appreciate it. And I have to extend my gratitude to KJ for her patience and diligence in working and setting this up. So for those of you that are not aware, the Joint Electric Truck Scaling Initiative came forward over the last couple of years and has been doing some great work in regards to battery electric trucks and the charging distribution. If you go to the next slide, please. So I'll introduce the project for those that are unaware of it, talk about some of the background, the deployment, the project focus, and the next steps, and kind of give you a summation. Then we'll have time for Q&A, so you could ask some good questions about this project. We go to the next one, please. So JETSI is obviously an acronym for the Joint Electric Truck Scaling Initiative. It's one of the largest commercial deployments of battery electric trucks in North America to date. And the goal there was to deploy 50 class BETs in between 2 companies, NFI and Schneider, and also originally provide 50 charging on site for those trucks, but they ended up finding a way to make it to 75. So what that did was allowed them to have more data and have an additional opportunity to explore what that will do on site. And those locations, NFI is in Ontario, which is in the Inland Empire, which is, obviously where I'm from, and then South Del Monte area. So if we go to the next slide, I could talk about the project focus. So the goal with it was to figure out how do we accomplish this major task while providing mitigations to the community and also identify the job growth that will occur from this goal of meeting our very ambitious emission requirements. And so I have the other opportunity to be on the Planning Commission for the County of San Bernardino. And so we talk about this a lot, about our renewable energy goals that we want to achieve incrementally. And so we find our place talking about planning and alignment. And so I think what's been discovered throughout this project is how much planning and coordinating is necessary from a workforce perspective, from a transportation, and then from a community engagement and education model that incorporates all those elements consistently. And so you'll see some of the data that is on there, talks about some of the long-term jobs, the weighted tons that'll be mitigated as a result of moving towards a more zero emission future. If we can go to the next slide, please. And so a project of this magnitude obviously has some gracious individuals that funded this work. And so you'll see there's CARB, AQMD, CAC, and the Mobile Source Resource Committee that provided some funding to this project that allowed it to take place, right? And I think a lot of what I've been hearing and listening to out in the community with different stakeholders is about the value that it has the potential to create. But it's like, how do we build the pathway to get there? How does we work with different utilities? Because you have private utility, you have CCAs, then you have Edison also involved to help us achieve these dynamics, which hasn't been necessarily the easiest process, but it's also about like when you're leading and going forward, you're going to have some challenges, and that's I think what's been experienced throughout this process. If you go to the next one, it talks about the 100 battery electric trucks that were deployed, and they're operating in predominantly overburdened communities. And so if you go to the next slide, you'll see kind of the project map area that highlights where a lot of the focus is happening from the ports all the way down to San Bernardino, and identifies the AB 617 communities and the SB 535 communities that are majorly impacted from a lot of the transportation impacts ongoing and from all the emissions happening because of the transportation. And so a lot of the work that we've been doing over the past year has been talking to people in different elements of those groups, from the Inland Empire Chamber of Commerce to IEP to the Western Council of Governments to public health, environmental justice groups, and even government elected officials to figure out how do you do this on a local level, and what are things that are going to help us get to the finish line, or at least have a general idea of how we can make this move forward when we don't have an influx of investments coming from a government standpoint. How does the public-private partnership sustain this level of growth and sustain the technology and the innovation that's occurring as a part of this deployment? If you go to the next one, it's going to talk about the timeline. So we are in 2025. Early this year, the program actually hit 11 million miles, which is a real milestone. And what was really cool because there was a event that occurred at NFI that showcased how everything worked together. All the partners were there to kind of talk about the value that this is creating. And so the next phase of that project in itself is how do you lock in solar to create an entirely renewable energy location? And so that is the next 3-4 months is going to be the main focus of JETSI. And so that's kind of where a lot of the conversations that happen about how do we do this sustainably, and how do we find the cost savings, and what does that data look like? One of the real impactful stories that I got was from a driver who talked about the value that it created for him. And it was really interesting because my father-in-law drove local transport for over 45 years. And so I knew it from that perspective, but not from an EV perspective. And so just some of the things about tires lasting longer, not having to deal with oil was a few of the comments that really struck out to me, because I've been my wife over 16 years. And so I've seen my father-in-law out, getting dirty, fixing his vehicle. And so I'm wondering what that does as the costs go down to impact the small truck operator. And I think that's where a lot of the conversations that we're looking to have moving forward about how do we scale it to the smaller truck operators, but make it affordable, because obviously right now, affordability is still a big barrier to entry into this market. If you go to the next one, it highlights the 11 million miles, talks about some of the achievements and goals that NFI and Schneider have hit in this process of developing this infrastructure. And we've talked a lot, and I believe there was a meeting that we had with the AB 617 Muscoy community, in which they were talking about, are you engaging the workforce? How are you talking to the workforce community about this? Because a lot of, in my experience and in my lived time here, is a lot of times we do government investments, but it doesn't align with the community colleges, with the K-12 education. But you've seen San Bernardino really harness a lot of that synergy to build a community college facility that's focused on zero emission future and electrification. But then you also have a high school in San Bernardino that's also creating a partnership. And so it's like, how do we align these things? And we've had conversations with different groups that are planning in the area about what does that regional alignment look like? And with AB 98, you're seeing truck routes being established, but how are you establishing public charging that's going to be able to sustain someone to do local routes and distribution? And so that's something that I think is becoming, as we're moving this direction, it's going to be the conversation moving forward. So if you go to the next slide, it talks about the workforce industry survey that was conducted last year, and it found that 81% of companies are developing talent from within to assist with deployment of zero emission vehicles. So we had a visit at Velocity headquarters, not too far down the street from here, actually, to talk to their team about how internally they're building pathways to train and develop talent to move up the ranks. But then you have Rio Hondo College, which is not too far from here as well, that is looking to provide the next generation of employee that understands how to deal with those dynamics. And the interesting part is that working on an electric vehicle is a little different than a diesel. There's a lot of safety precautions that are required. And so it's about how does that look? What does that look like? What is the investment needed? And so we've had conversations at Rio Hondo and at Valley College. Valley College has a pretty robust training program. And what we learned was that Rio Hondo has a good relationship with Tesla, and then San Bernardino Valley is working with Rivian on their deployment. And Amazon, which is located in the area, has deployed a massive amount of delivery trucks. And so they're trying to create a pathway that helps people understand those internals and innovation that's taken place. There was also a toolkit that was created to help small and medium to large size employers of how to scale their own operations. And then there was, at the ACT Expo, there was a meet and greet to help students and local partners understand the technology and kind of what JETSI is doing. If you look at the next slide, it kind of really just talks about the workforce outreach. The bottom one is actually, I believe that's Marvin from CCAJ trying out the vehicle simulator that Valley College have, which I thought was really interesting. I drive an electric vehicle, but I am not prepared to drive a very heavy ton vehicle. So I will not report my findings on this one, but the top one is actually the meet and greet we had with Rio Hondo Community College students at Velocity. And it was really interesting just to have the dynamic of students looking to grow into this pathway, looking to find their way into the renewable energy job sector. And so we've had different conversations with different entities on what that looks like. If you go to the next one, it just talks about recent news. So that bottom one's us hanging out at Rio Hondo. They have a really big Tesla educational program, which I thought was really neat. The top one was the kickoff at the NFI opening in Ontario. And so right behind there actually is where the solar has been installed, and they're looking to tie it into the charging infrastructure. But I think that's going to be the pathway to figure out how you continue reducing the cost at the local level and make it sustainable for businesses. So obviously this is available online, so you could click those links and read more. And then if you go to the next slide, it showcases where you could get more information on it, what the website is. There's probably about a year, 6 months to a year left for this project. So there will be a final update on kind of everything that has been experienced, all the challenges, all the hurdles, but also all the accomplishments, because something like this that's big and bold really sets some benchmarks that I think are achievable, but it requires everyone working together to get to that place. So if you go to the next slide, it showcases everyone that has or is involved in making this possible. And so that's pretty much the end of my presentation. So I don't know if I had the permission for Q&A, Supervisor.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's up to
I
you.
have a question too.
Yes,
You
sir.
mentioned some of the bigger players like Amazon, Rivian, Tesla. Are they using their resources as well too? Because they're getting a trained workforce and stuff out of this. Are they coming up and being partners? Do you see that trend coming forward?
Yes, and like I said, at the community college level, they're focusing with different institutions. I'm not too sure why, but I can only make assumptions. But Rivian has made a major partnership with the Valley College in incorporating that deployment of that zero emission vehicles in that region. And so they actually have the simulator. They have a lot of things, and so they're getting a lot of things like in-kinded and supported from
That's great,
that
but they should
partnership.
be
Yeah.
fitting in, so.
Definitely.
Doctor, you want to go?
Actually, 3 quick questions, because I'm a fan of the program. First of all, I know we haven't gotten the cost benefits yet, but I'm assuming that there's a significant decrease in operating costs per mile using the electric trucks. The other question I have is, do the electric truck operators like those versus using the diesel? And I saw that they were using 350 watt chargers. How long is that taking to actually charge those trucks?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Great question. The data is still being accumulated on the cost per mile. You talked about their feedback on driving the trucks. I've spoken to several truck drivers, and they like it. The people who do like the drop-offs in the high desert, they like it when they go down the Cajon Pass and they get that recharge. And they do like it, but some of the drawbacks are the 30 to 45 minutes that it takes to charge the vehicle. But a lot of what the like not the industry, but the developers and the how do you say that? I'm going through a blank. The individuals who utilize these are focused more on destination charging. So they're making it short drops, of course, instead of long haul because of the mileage restriction that they experience. But what we're seeing, of course, is the technology is allowing it to go further. We're seeing different things in Colton, where they've just launched a facility in San Bernardino. They have a public charging facility. So a lot of it is about how do you align your routes to meet that public charging route and to ensure that you maintain the continuity. Because a lot of this is weight and time, and that's the name of the game in the delivery and goods movement. And so that's where I think a lot of the focus is at. But you're seeing even in the Inland Empire and out to this way, there's a lot more public charging options coming forward to help eventually get us to a cost reduction. And you're seeing facilities like EVgo, and there's another one, it's EV Realty in San Bernardino that are incorporating the solar model so it gets to a place where it becomes more affordable. Thank you.
Raphael?
Hi, thanks. So I'm hopeful that at some point, you know, the efficiencies, having the loading and offloading dock actually have the charger there. So that way during the time that, you know, you're loading and unloading that truck.
When you're not moving.
Yeah, but you could be simultaneously charged as opposed to having to be offload and load and then go off to another location in order to charge. So, you know, I'm sure those efficiencies and safeties will be worked out at some point in the future. I had a few questions. You know, I'm thinking, of course, in terms of the Invest Clean program, as well as the forthcoming AB 617 goal or priority that I know the East LA Boyle Heights West Commerce had in terms of in this truck loaner program in order to get some of the the small businesses within the community of the East LA Boyle Heights West Commerce to look really hard at you know, going with the EV. And then you mentioned something interesting. You were mentioning that, you know, your father was you know, out there less, you know, turning wrenches and stuff, getting dirty. But, you know, one of the things that, you know, you had mentioned also was less wear and tear on the tires. And so it just made me think, of course, I'm, you know, an engineer. So it just made me think, you know, the gross vehicle weight of the tractor versus, you know, diesel versus electric. Because, you know, in the automotive, it's opposite, right? You know, they're a lot heavier. You go through tires, that kind of stuff. And so if I'm hoping that and this is to the Invest Clean group here in AQMD, if you can maybe partner and get some early cost savings and cost benefits from the JETSI group in order to highlight some of the savings from operations and maintenance overall, and then, you know, highlight those. And I'm sure, you know, as the kinks are worked out, you know, we could convince some of these other, you know, early adopters and to invest in some of those because of, you know, of course, you know, the incentive funding is for class 4 through 8. I know this is a class 8, you know, heaviest short haul routes, but we're hoping to really get those local delivery trucks really dialed in. And then the other question that I had, maybe for Kareem, to take back to the group, you know, hopefully, I'm hoping that Rio Hondo and then San Bernardino Valley College, not to be confused with the other Valley College, which I did, you know, initially. Just want to make sure that in addition to highlighting some of these, like the Teslas and, you know, the Amazons and the Rivians, which use, you know, fast charging, right now, we understand that some of the main, concerns are to independently operated charging stations. And so right now, there's a huge shortfall of, and established, regulation on those private individuals, because those supermarkets that ultimately, get those vehicle charging stations that you see, those are all theirs to operate, maintain. A lot of people like taking them in, but then they break and there's no one there to fix them. So I'm hoping that that could be, that lopsidedness can be corrected. So maybe, when you're speaking with the Rio Hondo and Valley College crowd, there's great opportunity right now for those that can't feed into that particular pipeline in terms of like the Teslas and the large, company. There's a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurship, which, as we know, a lot of the Latin community and the, our community that come from abroad, if you will. We are entrepreneurs and first and foremost, and so there's, lots of opportunities that could be had there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Raphael. You talked about loading and offloading, and this is something that I've asked a lot at the county level. It's interesting because a lot of and I've had these very Socratic discussions with staff on this, is about identifying who's going to pay for this, or what level of incentives are we establishing to ensure that these projects are sustainable for that, right? And I think a lot of the pushback that I've been seeing is that it hasn't been done yet very well. So a project like this showcases that it could be done. What does that cost look like? And once you show cost savings, entrepreneurial people are going to take advantage of it. And so that's the goal. Like once you're able to get to destination charging, onloading, offloading, and you're able to sustain that and everyone has that kind of infrastructure, that's the goal. I think this is kind of showcasing that it could be done on site. But it is expensive right now, and that's just the reality of it. You talked about wear and tear. I'll take that back. And that was more anecdotal. It was something that we discovered at Velocity because we were looking at their location. It was incredibly clean. And we were like, well, where are you putting all the oil? They're like, well, there's no oil because, of course, the vehicles don't distribute oil. And then that was the driver that mentioned the tires have been lasting longer. I thought was really unique because I have the same, I drive an EV and I know, the increase of the weight means the tires don't sustain themselves. But for some reason, it's working. And it's one of the major key findings that, come into the cost efficiencies. I think the last thing you talked about was maintenance opportunities from the community colleges. So I'll take that back too, have conversations. And I think I answered most of your questions.
You did. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know there was a lot to
No, I know.
there,
Yeah.
And I do appreciate it. Maybe, there's maybe there could be partnership with maybe a new warehouse coming online to demonstrate how, you have charging right at the dock. Once you have one project, and I will comment on this a little bit too, because I've been really trying to dig into this quite a bit. Talking to some of the biggest warehouse owners in our county. And the problem is they're not built to have that much power. And that's the same thing we're always seeing is trying to get the distributed power from Edison and the additional cost that it takes to get the bigger panels, to get bigger sub transformers and stuff in there. So with that, knowledge, that's the feedback I'm getting for a lot of the technologies we're trying to deploy. We're looking very hard at a number of different things. One, MSRC, we're looking at how we can use some of our funds to back up the clean air funds for power generation on site. Is there ways to do that cleanly and fit in the rules so we have, but as you invest in a person's warehouse, for example, that's usually not public facing. And so now we're also taking that back to the county saying, okay, who are the biggest landholders left in some of these valleys and stuff? It's generally government. Where in those truck lines can we look? Is there a model for us to jump into some of these grants and become a private-public partnership to also for our own fleets? I've talked to my fleet guy. We have thousands of vehicles and we're kind of mandated to do this over the next decade to start transforming. And we don't have the power at our own location. So it's not just a simple fix. It's that whole ecosystem. And fortunately, I think this year and next year we'll have more funds
than we ever have, we'll have again to try to look at that, but trying to be strategic how to spend those funds. And to be working with the ports of LA and Long Beach on that ecosystem from there to the Inland Empire of how we get those strategic points so you can do that. But I think it's more practical. Yeah, I'm even talking to like Omnitrans and other government agencies, instead of the cost to put it in a system in our own facility, because we just don't have the land even, nor the infrastructure to get, is there something we could do at a regional level on a large scale? Take a 40-acre parcel, 80-acre parcel, make it where you got hydrogen, you got really fast speed charging, because for all those of us with a EV, if you plug in that little 12-volt thing into a wall, you're sitting there for a long time. Even my 50 amps takes me, 4 hours to charge each day. So you really need that 300, 500 amps, and that just keeps it out of a whole new system. And now we're dependent on the power sources. And we're actually looking at this on Ontario Airport too. How do we get approximately 1,000 vehicles on airport to start to be translated? Again, we don't have the power, we're redlined as it is without expanding. So the power generation, distribution, and the common areas that we could share, it may be an easier fix than going to each dock, because that building would have to take a whole infrastructure change on it. So these are things that we're trying to look on a broader scale with some of the grants coming out. But I appreciate all the work you've done of your group, and it's fascinating. I'd love to get some data out of that too, and some new players that we have in our region too, to be part of that and give you data going forward. But it is going the right direction. It's just going to be slow and painful, just like it was for the EV cars 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Or if you have a hydrogen car, I feel bad for you because you have like 6 places to fuel up in the valley. It just as they hit it off, and it's that cost of operation. And I think that's something our legislative and advocacy groups can work on. When I talk to the president of Edison, because I complain to him all the time, he agrees. And it just went up 13% last, 2 weeks ago. He agrees it's too expensive as well. And he says a third of it's for the programs that the legislature requires them to do. So that's a third of the cost. A third is transmission, third power generation. So as California looks to go forward to be competitive on a global economic level, there's no way we're going to get data centers and all these high-speed stuff here if we're paying 3 or 4 times more electricity in other states. So it needs to be a considered effort for the legislature too, how to streamline the production and distribution of energy at a cheaper rate, not a more expensive rate. But that's another bigger thing to look at. Sorry for my commentary. Any other questions for? No. Thank you. We'll move on to the item number 5, meeting dates. Does anybody have a problem with that? Public comments. Is there any public comments on item number 4? I'm sorry.
No one online.
No one online, no one in here? On item 4? No. Okay. So seeing none, we'll go move, item 5. Is this an action item or is just a note, FYI, meeting dates? Okay, information. Anybody have any comments on item number 5, our dates for next year? You want to talk about it?
I mean, I would.
I didn't pick them, I'm just telling you.
I mean, it is what it is, right? I
Mhm.
mean, if it's flexible for change, maybe move it. Okay,
They're
Friday.
Fridays, but.
No, I'm saying, the week of, in terms of like, for
I will
instance,
say from my
27th to the
standpoint,
20th.
I'm here every Friday for some other board or committee. So, but sometimes those dates may conflict with other boards, but if you have issues with this, check your calendar, please send it to our team. And if they be flexible on the dates, we just have to get it out early enough for people to plan on the calendars.
I'll give it to you after the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. This receive and file. We'll move on to item number 6, other business. This is for any member of this body or staff can respond to questions posed by the public. May I ask a question for clarification on the agenda items, correct? At this point, and item number 7 is general public comment. Anybody have any? Yes.
Yeah, this is, I just had a question. I know I missed last meeting, but I don't see anything. I know there's a lot going on, different movement and parts going on with the ports ISR. And I wasn't here last time, but it looks like we haven't gotten an update. I know that the board is considering willing and dealing, which we all know MOU is not as strong as a ISR, but so I was wondering, and I know with AB 617 San Bernardino, we have not gotten any updates on ports and what's going on there, especially as a community who is kind of indirectly, directly impacted because everything that comes from the port sits in our community, in our valley over there. And EJAG, I don't think we've gotten any ports updates, especially the board considering a MOU. And I just wanted to know why we haven't been involved in that conversation.
Yeah, I can respond to that. The challenge is when you have, I can't speak to the what's been on the AB 617 committee, but for this group and other committees, when you have members of the governing board that are on this, and then the matters largely before the mobile source committee, you risk having discussion of the matter or a serial meeting, in advance. And so the
So it's
decision was
around
made
that.
by the executive management to just use the mobile source committee and then have that report back to the governing board in the discussions on this item, but understand that, there is interest from the various committees and groups, on this, significant negotiation that's going on. But, the decision is to just have that go before the mobile source committee and directly before the
I would
governing
say
board.
you're all invited to come join Station
Yeah,
Source anytime
I'm
you
just
want.
wondering, when you have committees like AB 617 and EJAC, where you have expert community members, and you're asking to galvanize feedback, I was just wondering why we haven't been included. But thank you
Yeah,
for
I'll
that.
take that back, but thank you.
Any other business here? Oh, yeah, Anna.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on our colleagues' comments. I know the port situation has been something that I've been wanting to be put on the agenda since like 22. And I understand I got feedback from staff about the whole potential violations, so Brown Act and all that, so which is great. But I think to Angie's point is it's important to at least have some type of update presentation. And maybe we can limit the discussion to where we don't get into any violations. But I think it's crucial that we have these conversations and at least a presentation of where we're at in the update. Especially right now, I saw the governor vetoed SB 34, and I know that was somehow impacting the whole port process. And so we didn't even, we can't even discuss that. Like, I just don't think it's reasonable. And I think there's ways to mitigate the potential violations, and we could still have some, input in this committee. So just wanted to piggyback on that.
Can we put it for a future meeting? Like on the next one, February?
Yeah, we can consider it.
Hopefully it'll be all kind of worked out by then, but at least have an update. Vanessa?
Oh, yeah, just that this is a difficult balance, but yeah, we did talk about extensively whether or not the port item should be on this agenda. And I think we decided if members want to send a committee support letter, that's totally viable, as long as board members don't participate, but that it shouldn't be on this agenda, it should stay on mobile source as a discussion item. And I know that that's tough to hear, but we did that after the warehouse rule.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so just quickly, I just wanted to circle back. Anna had asked a question about SB 415 and the timeline for the study that South Coast AQMD is required to do. So the study will begin as of January 1st of 2026. And then the first interim report is due January 1st of 2028. And the final report is January 1st of 2033.
2033.
Yeah, yeah. So, as a suggestion, maybe because it's going to be on the stationary source committee, or at least those meetings, when it's specifically going to be talking about the port issues, if we can be specifically invited, because a lot of times the agenda is all convoluted and we ignore the emails, on notification. But, if it's specific to the port, maybe we could be invited to those. That would be
Absolutely.
fantastic. Nice compromise That way we don't have a serial meeting or, Brown Act
Can you
violation.
make sure you get that out? Okay, group. Yeah. Thank you. So.
Hi, this is Susan, just for full awareness for the group that the item is coming to the November board meeting for approval.
That is.
Special meeting, anyone?
It's a November governing board meeting. I think it's November, hold on, is it November 3rd?
I know this is
No, November 7th.
And the way we did handle the warehouse letter of whatever our preference was on this committee is there was a special meeting of those interested in drafting it. And then there was a vote taken, I believe, by email from staff. So it's similar format. We did it offline.
It might have been rendering.
Oh, was it the renderings?
I think it was rendering.
No, it was the warehouse ISR.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was the first time this committee sent a letter in with their opinion, support or against.
Well, I would just encourage everyone to come up to the November meeting. It should be fun.
Well, question, sorry. I guess, remembering back on the warehouse ISR process, I know that's right, we did call a special meeting, so I know it's like 2 weeks away. Are folks, is that appropriate to call for a special meeting?
I would motion that, and then somebody second, they would have to put it on the.
I'll turn that into a motion.
I second that.
I didn't know if you can. I'll defer to, since I'm not the official chair of this, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is the charter. I mean, you can take your procedural action. We can look into it, but the charter calls for 4 meetings a year. Understanding, the significance of what's going on. I mean, you can bring the motion. I think we'll react to it. But the charter designates the 4 meetings a year. I mean, we'll adhere to the Brown Act. I'm just telling what the charter says. I mean, obviously there's rules and procedure and, Robert's Rules of Order, we'll react to whatever, action the group wants to take.
Well, we have a motion and a second to try to call a meeting with next 2 weeks. When that actually, but we can put it on the record at least. You want to have a roll call vote on that?
I think that,
Sure.
I think it's totally out of order. I think that it is, and it would be contrary to our charters and it's a little late for what we're concerned about. If we had wanted or were interested in it, we should have followed it all the way through the discussions and kept attending the board meetings. But at this point, I would say that it would create a problem and would be in violation, I think, of the Brown
Of the
Act.
charter. Well, and I'm
charter.
just looking at past history too. This is the first time we had a quorum in a year and a half. And if you take off the sitting AQMD board members off that, the bar gets even higher to get to a quorum to even take an official action if you had a meeting. And even if you could figure out how to do that. But there's nothing that says that all of you can't come to the November 7th meeting and give your opinions and listen what's going on. And definitely weigh in that way. It'd probably be more useful than a special meeting here because I don't think you're gonna get a quorum anyway. Especially if Vanessa and I and the chair are not here, that's 3 more that you have to get. There's not coming on a regular basis anyway. But that's just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, and I just want to add, Supervisor Hagman, that the letter would have to go through admin, so which would come after the November board meeting.
So would you like to still have that motion or you ladies want to draw it at this point? You can't get anything out of it if you had a special meeting.
So how would the letter work if we were to
If
send
you
a
were to get
recommendation?
First of all, you have to see if you can even violate the charter to have a meeting, but if you were to have a meeting, you have to get to a quorum. And then and the quorum requires to be 13? 12. So that'd be even three less because the sitting AQMD board members can participate that you still have to get to.
Right.
And then once you get the letter, then you have to send it to admin, which doesn't meet till after the meeting. So
I mean, I've tried to bring this item like since 2022, really. So I'm just like,
but there's lots
frustrated.
we're having lots of meetings right over here. Let's come over here and give us your thoughts. So I don't know, this is advisory committee anyway.
So what happened different last time when we had the special meeting on the warehouse ISR? Did we have the same charter then? Where we had the special meeting?
Sorry, it was signed by members of this committee and then agreed to via email to send it off. And I think that's all it was. It was just a letter from the members of this group.
Right.
And it wasn't voted on or anything else like that. It was just,
Yeah, you guys.
it was
can
just,
send in whatever
you
letter
know,
want.
ultimately just brought before the board at the appropriate meeting that was being discussed, which was the warehouse ISR. It was just turned in as a part of the comments to the warehouse ISR meeting. Yeah, like a recommendation.
So can we do that? Can we circulate a letter and then try to move it forward to admin? Is that appropriate? Yes, I can draft it tonight. No, I know, but
Well,
I just want to say, since I was there, the warehouse one was also very last minute. I want to be respectful to people who feel like this is important and just encourage you, if you do want to do it, you can. The membership did it for the warehouse one. So I just want to put it out there. I know it's a little different makeup now and it's harder to get a quorum. But I don't want to discourage anybody. It is possible.
so would it be a offering of a secondary or substitute motion to communicate via email for this committee?
Yeah.
And either when the proposers to suggest a letter to circulate among the members, either sign on or you don't, and get it back to us.
yeah, so if I can change my motion, I just motion that we circulate a letter and get approval from members to send it off.
And I don't know, do we need official action on that or can they do that anyway?
Or I
I
can
think you
cancel
could
my
do
previous
that
motion.
anyway. Yeah.
So how about just withdraw the motion, but you'll take the work with the clerk, get
Yes.
everyone's emails and send something out and
All right, sounds
Yeah.
good.
then get it to us by the 7th.
And just to clarify, board members can't participate in that. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah. So just take us off that list.
Okay.
So can we utilize, you know, the staff to circulate that to the members?
As members, we should be able to have the access to that resource, but they can't send it for us.
I see.
From my
So
understanding.
we don't have
I think
Or
she
something.
can give you the contact
Text.
information for everybody on the committee.
Perfect,
I mean,
thank
it's
you.
public. So at least the names are, if you could work with some of the members and just make sure they have the emails. So
Great.
everyone good with that? Okay, with that, we'll move on to public comment on items not on the agenda. I know we have online. And Ms. Hall? Okay, we'll start off online first and we'll go to you, Chris, okay? Macaulay?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'm calling in because I am really concerned about the process that the Port of Los Angeles, the City of LA, and other interest groups are moving this collaborative agreement so quickly without having any community input and even not allowing us to do any community sessions to inform the communities of what's happening with this this thing that is moving so fast. So I was wondering if you all can actually request a delay for the following board meeting for them to vote on this and for us to be allowed to provide information to the community and get feedback as well, because This was proposed, I believe, about a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, if I'm not mistaken, or two, and then it's moving too quick. And there was a rule that we were working for over 10 years, and then suddenly this, what's happening now, it's between the city, the port, and AQMD, and we had no input whatsoever in this process. So I'm asking you, the EJAC, if it's possible that you can recommend at least to postpone it until we have enough time to go over and see also the environmental impacts, because there's no baselines for data on environmental impacts. There's nothing in there that significantly says that it's going to be something similar, or that there's going to be rules, or that there's going to be a process to really safeguard the community from all these polluters from the port, practices. So my request and my question is that if it's possible for you to at least have or interfere or give them a recommendation to the board that to give us more time, because this is unacceptable. By the way, I'm from Wilmington. I have a nonprofit which is called Emerge, environmental justice activists, and we are really looking at this with a lens, because the time frame is so short. We have fought for many, many years to have a rule, and now this is being changed to something that is not even with the community input. And it's really worrying me. There's no different the way they're acting as the administration is acting, this administration at the federal level. They're imposing, they're not taking anything from us. They're just coming in and saying what's going to be done. And I don't think that should be the way. And I think that EJAC has some responsibility in making sure that the community input is in there as well. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Can I respond to that?
Susan, yeah.
Susan, okay, we usually don't respond to public comment. Go ahead.
No, I just respond to the comment that was made, but if you prefer me not to, that's fine too.
Go ahead if you like.
Okay. I just want to say that there has been a public process, that we had a community meeting last week that we were doing office hours. Magali has participated in the community meeting in the evening. There was a request for evening office hours. We had the evening office hours. Magali was at the evening office hours. We've been receiving written public comments on the cooperative agreement. Staff is working on looking at all the different comments that we're receiving and, possible changes to the cooperative agreement. So in terms of a public process and reaching out, there is a public process. It's not the same as a rule, but we've been trying to do as much engagement and discussion with the community about the cooperative agreement.
Thank you, Susan. That's all. Do we? Allison?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Allison Hom. I'm a staff attorney with NRDC's Environment, Equity, and Justice Center, and I'm a concerned community member living in the South Coast Air Basin. I'd like to urge the South Coast Air Quality Management District Environmental Justice Advisory Group to stand firmly against the port's current draft cooperative agreement. This agreement would suspend AQMD's rulemaking authority for 5 years in exchange for a weak, incomplete deal, one that lacks emission reduction targets, clear timelines, and accountability. It's filled with empty placeholders that fail to improve air quality for frontline residents, most impacted by port pollution. In just a few months, the district moved from a transparent public rulemaking process, one that took years to build, to a closed-door negotiation with the ports, the largest single source of NOx emissions in our region. Throughout this process, frontline residents were not meaningfully included, and there was no consultation with this very environmental justice advisory group before the rulemaking process was paused. That exclusion is unacceptable, especially when port emissions have continued to rise over the past year. The EJAG exists to elevate community voices and ensure that environmental justice is not sidelined. Today, I ask you to use your influence to urge the board and staff to reject the cooperative agreement as drafted and to restore the public rulemaking process that centers community health, transparency, and enforceable standards. Our region's frontline communities, the people living with the daily impacts of diesel exhaust, asthma, and pollution, cannot wait another 5 years for relief. It's important to note that frontline residents played a crucial role in ensuring SB 34 was vetoed to protect AQMD rulemaking authority. Now that SB 34 was vetoed, the 5-year ban in the cooperative agreements resolution is even more concerning. The draft cooperative agreement directs staff not to pursue any regulations for the ports for the next 5 years, leaving many critical measures to be negotiated in the future. Thank you for your time and for your ongoing commitment to environmental justice. I stand in solidarity with the Impact Project, its allies, and all frontline residents across the South Coast Air Basin calling for more time and to ensure AQMD truly addresses port pollution. Thanks for considering our comments today.
Thank you for your comments. At the Chair Delgado's office, there's Andrea.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea. I'm with the People's Collective for Environmental Justice. We're out of San Bernardino. Just thankful for the space that's focused on EJ. And given the nature of environmental justice and really the core being ensuring that all voices are not only heard, but incorporated, it's really disappointing to hear that this board hasn't been engaged on the port's MOU or ISR conversation. That should be something that is coming from the chairs on this board to the EJAC. I understand about the Brown Act, but the board themselves can be discussing it, especially when it's focused on EJ. Other boards run all their different rulemakings in front of their EJAC, such as CARB. So there should be no reason that's not happening here. And also asking us to come on November 7th is great, but when it's fully baked, it's kind of ridiculous, right? There are so much time now to be able to be giving comments, and we're losing out on that. And this combo really connects to the conversation that we've been having today, right? Truck routes, EV trucks are really important, but I'm sure we all understand here that that combo is happening because it's a product of how we're not doing enough to protect communities on the ground in their communities, right? And so if we want to talk about environmental justice, let's talk about not neglecting the root cause of all this, which are the ports, the trucking, the warehouses, and the rail yards. And the port being the largest source of stationary emissions, there's nothing more EJ than that. So I'm going to repeat myself because I would have to agree with Magali. We haven't been heard and we haven't been included in the conversations. Susan, these sessions haven't been real community engagement, because if it did, you would see our voices in it, and you don't. You've given us something baked behind closed doors, and then you have an open forum for us to talk about it for a couple minutes. That doesn't count. And for the record, because we'll say it again so that you can have it again here, the board should not be giving up 5 years of rulemaking. The board should not be signing any agreement that doesn't include emissions reductions in it. 2,400 people die prematurely a year because of port-related pollution. If the MOU doesn't address this, then we don't need it, and you're not doing your job. So as the EJAC, I expect this to be a place where one of the largest sources of environmental injustice is talked about, and that this board takes their comments into account. And for those that chair this committee, I expect y'all to be the loudest on environmental justice on the dais. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We have Christian Tapia.
Hi, yes, thank you. My name is Cristian Tapia Delgado with Pacific Environment and an East Yard Communities member, and also a Long Beach community resident living 10 minutes from the ports. I appreciate EJAC members bringing up the need for more engagement on the port's ISR and MOU process. Echoing what others have already shared, more community engagement is something that the Impact Project Coalition and many other community-based organizations and port residents that I've spoken with have been calling for. It's disappointing to hear pushback saying that there's been ample time and opportunities to engage when you're hearing directly from this advisory group members here and say that they haven't even received updates about the process, nor in the AB 617 gatherings. And these concerns are made rightfully so. There's been one public meeting, as has been shared on the MOU, about the closed door negotiations with the ports just a couple weeks out from a vote, where the board will basically be choosing to give up their regulatory power over the ports for 5 years. And this one public meeting is after concepts have already been largely baked in. It leaves community questioning how will comments be meaningfully listened to and integrated as part of this proposed agreement. And while there's been a couple of presentations at monthly governing board meetings and mobile source meetings, community was not able to engage in these closed door negotiations. And our coalition and members drove 7 hours from the IE, Long Beach to Sacramento to oppose SB 34, standing with the district to make sure that y'all have the regulatory power to regulate ports. And so, seeing now that y'all are willingly might be giving up that power, it's kind of a backstab to community. And, just echoing what others have shared, we need more time. The Ports ISR was a multi-year process. And, there was still a lot of pushback there about it moving too quickly. And now we're steamrolling through community in a couple of months with an MOU. Where was this momentum and drive to adopt a strong Ports ISR? And we keep hearing that the current MOU gets us even more than an ISR. So then why was industry and the ports so opposed to an ISR if they're giving up so much more in this MOU process? And so, yeah, just really ask y'all to think about that and to listen to the comments that have been made by this committee today. And yeah, just urge y'all to consider how community can, moving forward, be more engaged in this process so that we feel that we're meaningfully being listened to. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I think that's all online at this point, right? Okay, so we'll close that. We'll have one inside.
Yes, thank you. Chris Chavez, Deputy Policy Director at Coalition for Clean Air. We are going to be submitting a letter with 11 organizations and counting, expressing our extreme frustration and opposition to South Coast AQMD's recent actions regarding to the San Pedro Bay ports. This process has completely sidelined environmental justice communities. This has not been adequately discussed with the AB 617 communities. The Wilmington, Carson, West Long Beach AB 617 community, which I am a member of, was only informed the week after this district decided to abandon Rule 2304. This body has requested multiple times to discuss it. And yes, I understand the Brown Act is an important issue, but in this very room, the Local Government and Small Business Assistance Advisory Committee not only agendized and discussed Rule 1111, 1121, but voted to oppose those rules. So it makes no sense how this group is not able to speak up when another committee is able to speak up and actually make recommendations to the board. That is, to me, an unequal enforcement of the law if the Brown Act is truly a standing point. And after this meeting today, I'm convinced it is an opportunity, it is a planned, intentional decision to disenfranchise the AB 617 participants and to disenfranchise you. It is patently offensive to see this body not being able to discuss it and being told to be happy enough with showing up at November 7th, to be happy enough with a single community meeting to discuss these issues and having about 3 minutes of comment each to be able to express these concerns. The whole process has been extremely disappointing, but also deeply corrosive to the relationship between environmental justice, public health, and community stakeholders in this district. Like some of you here, I went up to Sacramento to fight for against SB 34. I went to Sacramento to get funding for AB 617. I got a lot of gray hairs out of that process this year. And I want to make sure that if I'm going to stand up for this district, that our communities have a seat at the table, which we don't now. This is a closed door agreement. This is interrupting a multi-year public rulemaking process. And this is a sign that we are not at the table. The folks who are living at dealing with port pollution are the ones that are being impacted the most. AB 617 is not just a source of state funding for you guys. It's a commitment to the communities that have been impacted for decades, for nearly a century. And to say that we should be happy enough for one meeting and showing up in November after everything's baked, again, it's patently offensive. This is going to have ramifications for how we approach and interact with you and our trust with this agency. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That's all the requests to speak we have. And we will adjourn to the next meeting date, February 27th. Thank you.
Excuse me, I would still like to address this issue we're discussing right now, if we may.
It's the ports is not agendized really.
No. I'm talking about the public comments.
Okay.
Okay, I think this is a different situation as far as that goes. But I do want to explain some of the issues because I think that we need to understand, because this is a good time to talk about people attending meetings. If we were to hold a meeting right now, some of you who are on the board would have to recluse yourself, okay? we would lose majority right there. We would not have a quorum. So we couldn't officially take any, I mean, I would like to be able to, at this point, say, have enough members here that we could say, okay, we're gonna write a letter to the board saying that we would like a delay on the decision and doing, because I agree that this is, at this point, is questionable whether it's a good way of doing business. But at the same time, I have to take responsibility that, that we haven't had quorum in the last 4 meetings we've had before, 3 meetings that we had before. And now, even if we try to take action on this, because based on the comments of the public, because we have to listen to the public. We've had very good reasons that have been expressed here today that we should delay this, and I would like to make a recommendation, but we would have to vote on it. And if the people who are on the board recluse themselves, we wouldn't have a quorum.
Right.
So this is what everybody has to understand, that
And I will say this.
we need to
as a
attend
sitting
meetings.
in chair of this, and I have texted our chair over during this meeting that I show up to every one of these, okay? And because my staff lets me know if I miss a meeting, I don't miss meetings. There's a lot of people here are missing meetings, and we got to figure out a way to circulate them. If you're not going to show up, don't take the responsibility to come be on a committee. And there's a lot that to not have a quorum 1.5 years, I've asked our team to look and see what we can do to get people that are going to show up and give input. And I would agree, if we were able to have a quorum and we have this stuff, letters should go out with us leaving and figuring out how to do it. But the practicality is, and I said on several of these, that never have a quorum. And so it is what it is for this particular one, I think, but it's something that I will mention to the chair that maybe we should address. I don't know how to do that, because I don't know how the members are selected in the first place, to be honest. But that's something we could look at a future meeting. But I'm hesitant, just because of my experience being on these things for 20 years, if things are not agendized, to have too much conversations about it. They do need to be agendized, and that's something that also you could weigh in with the chair. How do we get things more speedy? Or this is the whole function. If it's 4 meetings is enough for this committee, I don't know. But as me sitting in, that's my parameters I have for the day. But thank you for your comments, Manuel. Anything else? If not, we'll adjourn to February 27th. Thank you.